From slinging pocket knives as a teen, to building and scaling and selling a tech startup to a global giant, to turning a family treasure into a Hollywood movie, Henry Woodman has seen and done a lot of cool things. He's going to share his wild tale with us today, and he's going to inspire us on why luck and working your ass off consistently need to go hand in hand.
If you look at the numbers and you say, okay, 90% of businesses fail, but not me, I'm different, I'm special. I'm like, okay, but what is special about it? What problem are you solving? And are you patient enough to deal with the ups and downs?
I'm not going to do a long intro because we're going to go all over the place. So let's not try to just nail this down into being one type of episode. So Henry Woodman is going to take us on a ride through space and time, from selling knives to building and selling a tech company to turning a sassy and mysterious love story into a feature film. So I'm pumped to see where this takes us. Thank you for joining us, Henry.
Wow, thanks, Jesse. Buckle up, baby. Actually, it sounds more exciting when you say it. I'm like, who is that guy? I want to hear about all this.
It's you. I saw your profile on the internet. This is where I find people, guys. And I thought, wow, I think I'm all over the place. I'm like, oh, how does it all tie together? And I felt like your story ties it all together. You have tried and done and succeeded at so many different things and killed it. And the next chapter is going to be pretty exciting too with this feature film. But the entrepreneurial grit that it takes for all of the different ventures that you tried is inspiring. And from a story that I heard, it started early with knives as a child. So will you tell us that story?
Yeah, first of all, I'm a little bit older, so you still have lots of time to do all of this kind of stuff. But so, I'm 13 years old. I'm a swimmer, by the way. I go to Mexico City for a swim meet, and I end up picking up a switchblade. One of those, you push a button and a little blade flips out. And I come back to junior high trying to impress my friends, and they're all like, that's the coolest thing. I want one, right? So I get on a plane, mind you, at 13, I go to Mexico City. I buy a couple of boxes of switchblades, and I come back and I buy the small ones for $3 and the big ones for $4, and I sell them for $15 and $18. They were gone within a couple of days. So that was my first, wow, yeah, right. And not because I was trying to make money. I just wanted to impress my friends. I'm cool. I got switchblades, right? And mind you, you could get on a plane with a knife in 1973. This is when all happened.
Were you by yourself too?
Yes.
Amazing. Is travel and language important to you and your family?
Yeah, my father was in the travel business. My mom used to love traveling. So I spent a lot of time in my youth traveling and, eventually, obviously, doing travel films.
And you speak multiple languages.
Yes. See.
So how did travel and media take you to Chile?
So, I'm in Los Angeles dreaming about producing and directing movies. Of course, that did not happen, but that was, why I went to LA. And while I'm there, I end up on a travel film crew as a PA, a production assistant, really a gopher. And after many years working my way through from sound guy to the assistant director, eventually I'm the producer. And in Chile, in the late 80s, they went from a dictatorship to a democracy. So as Pinochet was ousted, right? And as a result, and we had done a film in Chile for Eastern Airlines. So I knew the people there. And all of a sudden, Chile had these new television stations and a new network that was obviously popping up because of the new democracy. And what do they need? Content. So I get my butt down to Chile. I talk to the producer friend of mine. I say, set up a meeting with the new, network. I go in there and I, pitch myself as an American producer. Bullshit. And I, rip off an idea from an American show. And a couple of months later, we're on the air producing a show in Chile called Machos. And that was kind of like, opportunity presented itself. And I figured, you know what? I know people there. Let's go and figure it out. And we did. And so I was there for a little over a year.
Today they're calling knockoffs dupes. So you can say I duped a show.
I totally ripped it off. I changed a couple of things, but yeah, I duped it.
Yeah. So it'll be the same outfit here and the same outfit here from on Amazon.
Yeah.
They're like, it's a $10 dupe. But great. So was there anything between the knife selling and the first producer stint that was
Sure.
all over the place.
So, I go to college. I'm at the University of Arizona simply because I wanted sunshine and, hot, semi-clad women, and that's what I got. And I'm sitting in a laundromat, pocket full of quarters. At the time, I was addicted to Pac-Man, those video game machines. And the laundromat didn't have a Pac-Man. So I call every laundromat in Tucson and I said, "You guys have, video game machines?" And they'd say no. And eventually I'd say, "So would you like one?" Right? And some people say, maybe. And I didn't have any money, but I said I'll get one and we'll share the revenue, right? And so I got my tuition money. I went to an auction in Phoenix. I bought a used machine because those arcades in the malls, they had these machines in the back that nobody played, and then they would give them away almost at auctions. So I bought this machine. I put it in a laundromat, and lo and behold, a couple of months later, it made its money back. I bought another one, and so on until I had video games in many of the laundromats around Tucson because again, opportunity, it was my problem. I wanted to play a video game. I didn't want to study, and I had quarters and I had time, and I was a captive audience, right? And so that was the business. Then I sold the business, went to Los Angeles. I thought, I'm going to get on a game show, which I did. Won a little money, and I had money from the business coming in and money from the game show. And what do? I go party and do drugs and screw up my life and eventually get on a travel film crew to get out of LA and that debauchery.
Well, I made it work.
Yeah.
And then you turned all of that into tech. How did you pivot from here to here to here to being a founder of a tech company?
Yeah. I would never have guessed it. While I'm in Chile, somebody gives me a CD-ROM and says, "Take a look at this. It's a 360-degree virtual tour." And coming from producing travel films, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, right? I can look all around a destination or a room. Wow. And I don't have to travel with 5 guys and 17 pieces of luggage. Bring it on, right? This is the future. So I leave Chile, I come back home, I set up a company called World Travel Vision to do virtual tours. I travel around and doing these virtual tours. Eventually we hire photographers. And then in the sort of mid to late 90s, hotels and destinations said, how do we put this stuff on this new World Wide Web thingy? Because we were giving them CD-ROMs that they would take to trade shows and conferences and promote themselves. And I said, I don't know, send them a CD-ROM. What do I know? Right. And they said, yeah, they don't have a standard. They don't know what to do. And I'm like, all right, let me see what I can do to help. So one thing leads to another. And, I start distributing the virtual tours. Hey, you do a virtual tour and I'll get it on Expedia and Orbitz and Travelocity. Right. And then I realized the value isn't in the production. It's a one-time cost. The value is in the distribution. And then I realized virtual tours are nice to have. Photos are neat to have. And I didn't know it at the time, but photos did not have, you know, before with travel agencies, a brick and mortar, there was green screens and text that was like, is this room available? Yes. And how much on this date? That's it. There were no pictures. So migrate all that to the internet. They needed a place and a database to hold pictures. There were different standards. It was the wild, wild west. So eventually, after decades of building this out, we ended up with a tech company that would collect, size, manage, tag, distribute photos for almost all of the world's hotels. So today, if you go on any travel website, you see pictures of hotels that probably would have come from my old company. It was called Ice Portal. So
Right.
happened to be at the right place at the right time and seeing an opportunity. Now, most of my life, I was at the wrong place at the right time, or I was the right place at the wrong time. But you plant a lot of seeds, you keep your ears and eyes open. Eventually, you'll find yourself in that right place.
So a little bit of luck,
A lot of luck.
but also it sounds like a lot of hard work. If it took, that doesn't sound like an easy thing to do, to take something that was single photographer, putting it on a CD, sending it in the mail to an internet
Yeah,
global.
a global tech company. Exactly. I mean, once it's built, the economies of scale work in your favor and it becomes the network. I mean, you can say that's a great idea. So you build the technology, you call the world's largest hotel group, Wyndham, and you say, listen, I've got this idea. And they say, I love it. And where can you send it? And they go, well, I'm talking to Expedia and Booking. And Okay, what about all these others, right? And there are literally hundreds. I said, well, that's going to take me years. And they go, good, well, call me when you get there. So it's a huge moat, a huge barrier to entry, which, like I said, over a couple of decades of building it out and starting with virtual tours to get the connections and then have the relationships with the hotel groups, one thing rolled into another.
You glossed over something that most founders need to hear. You said, "Oh, I just called Wyndham." How did you know who to call and what to do that early
Well,
stage?
yeah. So it was kind of a gestation. So what happened was we were doing virtual tours for individual hotels and distributing them. And that would eventually get us into the distribution channels like Expedia, right? And then what happened was we wanted to get to the trade shows where they had distribution people. And so we called the trade shows like HEDNA, Hotel Electronic Distribution National Association. We call them and say, listen, we will send you a photographer, take a picture of the event and the speakers, and we'll give them to you in exchange for a booth and tickets to the show, right? So we exchanged our photographer services with virtual tours for a booth and some place. So then we'd be at the thing, a booth, and we'd talk to the people and we'd meet the people. And, it's a relatively small world when you think about it. I mean, there's probably 70 global management and hotel representation companies on planet Earth that you really care about. It's very hard to run a reservation system and connect to all these places. So individual hotels like Chelsea's Resort or something, that is connected to a representation company, unless you're Chelsea's Hilton, right? Then you're connected to Hilton's reservation system. So you just really want to connect to a system like a Wyndham, and you get 10,000 hotels in one contract, right? So, we would talk to them for years, and say, how you doing it? What are you doing? Where are your pain points? What's going on? There was a competitor. We had partnered with one, and then they got acquired by the competitors. So there was one competitor, and they ended up upsetting people. So we saw opportunities and built on, hearing what they're missing, what they needed. It was a long way to answer that question.
Well, we got even more down into the weeds of all these creative ways to do things. You didn't just go to the CEO and ask something, you found a way to actually get in front of the right people, but it did take time.
It took a huge amount of time. And I'll also be clear, historically my ventures were, start, produce, give up, next, right? This was an ongoing concern. And this is a business that essentially for me, when people would say things like, oh, you need to hire the right people, I'm like, I can't even afford the right people, and I didn't know what that meant. It meant culture, right? Oh, you need KPIs. And I'm thinking, I don't even know what a KPI is. Or, you got to have a vision. I'm like, I just don't want to, I just don't want to fail. I had no vision. So eventually, as I learn how to structure and set up the parameters around the business and what a vision and a mission and a culture and KPIs and ongoing concerns and how to build that foundation, then we started to get some traction. Because initially it was just like, yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to fail. I didn't know what I was doing.
Was there an inflection point or some sort of aha moment when it started to click?
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody gave me a book called Traction by Gino Wickman, and I read it and I went, oh my God, traction is where, rubber meets the road. And it simplified those simple comments and I understood. And so I bought one for everybody on the team. At the time, we were only 6. And I said, this is our new Bible. Read it. A month from now, we're going to put together all of these elements. We're going to get our scorecard. We're going to get all this stuff figured out. And from that point on, literally the backdoor password to our technology was Gino Wickman. He was the author of the book. So we were like drinking the Kool-Aid from Traction, but it helped. It was clearly a necessary evil for a small business to understand what those parameters are.
Did you stick with Gino or did you have a lot of people hitting you with different ideas or, oh no, you should try it this way after you had that Bible?
I stuck with Gino, but then I joined organizations like EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and there were other things like Scaling Up with Vern Harnish, and many of them follow the same, their same general principles, Traction to me was the most comprehensive. It does everything you want to know for a small business with the exception of sales and marketing, which is very subjective to your business and very hard to do. The other thing that, you know, any of the books or any of this doesn't do really is to tell you it's a slow and painful process and you need a lot of discipline. It's like wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, do it again. Wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, do it again. And have the discipline to be patient.
When you're swimming, when I think of somebody swimming, I think that must be so boring. You're just sitting and doing this thing, and you're not even a lot of times listening to music unless you have those shocks headphones. You're just in your head or you're just zoning out for so long. It takes so much discipline to be a good swimmer. So you had that in your back pocket. You built that muscle.
I think that anybody who has done athletics or some sports or something with discipline, be it military, previously has some of that back, sort of the backstory, if you will, or the ability to have that discipline. And for me, swimming, I would take the middle of my day and my lunch hour and go swim because it would give me energy for the afternoon. And it would also give me time to think through things that were going on in the business. There's always something going on. So you're swimming and you're like, okay. And then you're trying to work it through. And swimming gives you the opportunity to do that. And I think more oxygen and blood flow to the brain as well.
Did you have a good network around you when you were starting this company?
Not in the beginning. Later I did. And, you know, I would get the network, like I mentioned, EO, and then there was another group. And my wife said to me, so what is it about the network? And I said, well, you know, that's saying that you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And she said, yeah, yeah. I said, that's why. And of course she looks at me and she goes, man, are you bringing that average down? So the truth of the matter is when you surround yourself with people that have aspired to do things, they inspire you and they motivate you. Whereas if I were hanging out with a group of people that were, you know, smoking a joint, sitting on the couch and eating chips, I probably would have been doing the same.
For finding team members, did you do the same, trying to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I couldn't write a line of code, so I hired a guy. You know, first I hired a team, Ukrainian guys that were in Seattle that came from Microsoft because they knew big scale, right? And at the end of the day, part of that culture thing is you want people that fit the culture, what you believe in, and the values that you hold true, right? In addition to others, you know, usually I found that people that are younger and hungrier, and especially, and I don't mean people that came from other places, like I had a Vietnamese guy and I had a Czech woman, they were amazing because they really had a strong work ethic. It didn't like, I just want to show up and punch a card and get my paycheck and go home. No, they, you know, they believed in the vision and they, you know, they were all in.
It can be really hard to find people who have the hunger.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know, but I think it's harder now because I coach small businesses and I find the human resource component now being a bit more challenging. I'm like, wow, you know, she's, and you know, the other thing that I did, I think was helping me is I knew I wasn't affording some of the people that should have had more. And I gave them what's called phantom stock, meaning I'm going to give you a percentage of the company. And when we sell the company, you will get that percentage. Now, you won't be an equity holder, which means if we lose money, you won't be pinged on your taxes. You know, there's certain benefits, pros and cons either way, but at least they knew the goal was to sell the company and then they would get a little windfall as well. And they did.
Did you have a timeline? Like, this is when we're starting the business. Think of the Pac Man. I want to get out in this amount of time, 4 years. Did you have a timeline when you started this?
No, I did not. At the beginning, it was just, you know, oh, there's an opportunity. Let me see what I can do. And then eventually I've, you know, pivoted from virtual tour production to virtual tour production and distribution to virtual tours for free. Production would make it up and, you know, we lost leader to photos and then we'd get rid of the virtual tours and then to photo distribution. And, you know, at the end of the day, I believed I needed to grow more and get into other things like the Airbnbs and vacation rentals and stuff. And so a very large multi-billion dollar company came along and said, we're interested. And I'm like, yeah, I'm always interested, but listen, I'm not there yet because I think I need to make more revenue to get a higher EBITDA, blah, blah, blah. I had a number on my mirror for a decade. And so, eventually they say, well, what's the number? And I give them the number, and, they didn't laugh. And so eventually they looked at each other and they finally said, fine, you got a deal. And I was like, done, bring it on. No investment banker. 60 days later, money's in the bank. And I'm like, woohoo, this was a year before COVID. And we already know what happened to hospitality and COVID. Everything got decimated. Yeah.
So I hear luck in two places, but the rest sounds like in the beginning being in the right conversation of hearing people talk about the problem, and at the end that it hit and got out at the right time. But in between, it sounds like a slog where you guys figured it out, put your head down, and just kept building a deeper and deeper moat.
Yeah, it was a huge slog. I mean, there were a lot of hurdles. There were lawsuits against from the competitor. There were times where we were like probably days away from bankruptcy. There were a lot of things that I guess I would learn along the way. I would look back and say, don't stress as much as you did, because I can't imagine how many sleepless nights I had. But at the end of the day, fortunately, it all worked out. But, there was also the other side of the coin where I kept telling people, listen, if this doesn't work out, I don't have a plan B. I'll be asking you if you want fries with that burger. I mean, that's my backup.
All in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So post acquisition, you're shifting back from tech into media. Tell us about this new journey.
Yeah, it must have been somebody dropped me on my head as a child because, brain damage obviously set in after that because I thought, 40 years ago, I wanted to get into the production business. Let me go back and do that, which is now I don't have the stress of like, I really need to worry about survival and I need a paycheck. So it's a lot easier. The world has changed dramatically. Back then it was run by the studios. Then in recent years, it's really by the streamers. And I think in the coming years, it's going to change again for, well, pretty dramatically for AI. AI creation is going to change the way we view things because if you look at it from a streamer's perspective, like an Amazon or a Netflix or an Apple, and you say, listen, you could do this series for $10 million and it'll take you a year and a half. Okay. Now, in traditional methods, now with AI, you can do this series in a couple of months and it'll cost me 80% less. Yeah, bring it on. And if people like it, you can do the season 2 in a couple of months and not a year and a half. Yeah, bring it on. So instead of doing, one series, you can do 3 or 4 for the same amount of money. If a couple of them fail and one hits it, you win, right? And you can also specialize in more niches. Like I'm really focused on this narrow field, some paranormal romance, historical fiction. Yeah, people really like that. Now there's an audience for all these things. So that's the goal. Yeah.
Pivoting into AI and regular.
Well, listen, I don't want to do AI. I want to be traditional, but it is a very challenging world to break into, Hollywood. And if I don't get good traction in the next year, then the obvious answer is to focus my attentions on the AI component because eventually it's inevitable that it's going to happen. People still say, especially in Hollywood, well, it's not there yet. And you can tell them like, yeah, just like the beginning of the internet, it sucked. And now it's amazing and you can't live without it. So let's be clear. This is in its infancy, right?
I mean, there are so many AI influencers on social media, like shaking their booties or showing their feet, making a lot of money. There are OnlyFans that are just completely AI. People are paying a lot of money for
Really?
someone's feet pics and their AI feet pics.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
already at a level that people will pay for it.
And that's the world that generally does is the forerunner in video and stuff is porn. So I guess I'm gonna have to watch some more porn.
Yeah, get your it's research.
Yep.
We'll post in the post don't post post your favorites in the comments so we can do some good research here. Calling all AI foot creators. Show us what you got. So you've shifted and now you have a co-founder, you're back in media. How is entrepreneurship and this love for creating married right now with what you're the work you're doing?
Well, I think the goal really when the whole time is I like the creative process. I like the process of building, and creating a series is building and telling a story, right? And back in the day when I was in college, I was studying radio, television, and psychology because I wanted to understand how you bring these things to life. All along in creating television, game shows, and travel films, it's still the creation process. I enjoy that very much, right? It just, I happened to stumble into the entrepreneurship just because it was an opportunity and I took advantage of it, which is kind of a good thing because I don't think I would have been able to do what I'm doing now had I not been able to do that. So the fact that now the world is morphing with AI and the world is still consuming a lot of entertainment, I think it's also going to change whereby, we have the attention span of gnats, and we may see like 10-minute clips of a series. Let's say a series is 1 hour long. It may be 6 10-minute clips on YouTube. So I take mini breaks and I read, and then I can, if I'm jonesing, I can go to the next one where I can stop and then I can go look at it later. I fear that the world is getting into that limited attention span and give me some quick sort of feed me quick bites and then, I'll come later and just keep it going. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think it's going to be a lot of people that have the ability to create stuff with good creative ideas on with AI will be able to post stuff on places like YouTube.
Even this podcast, and this is a audio podcast, plus we're taping it. I call it taping still. We're recording it with the camera, and it's going to slice it up. We use Riverside. Thanks, Riverside. We're going to slice this up into tons of little clips, and you might be watching one of these little clips or listening to one of these little clips. If you're on YouTube and you've made it through the episode to this point, what are we, like almost 30 minutes in? Like, congratulations. Thank you. If most people don't have the attention span to make it, so it changes how you have to present yourself.
Yeah,
Everything is like an ad. You have to get them. They call it the hook. Everything needs to have a hook. Everything needs to get you shiny and paying attention right away.
absolutely. I agree.
Now, novels, people are still sitting down and reading entire novels, especially romance novels. This brings us to the beautiful, the wonderful, the reincarnation of Marie.
Yes. So this is the story. Okay, I'm going to take you back. Back when I went to Los Angeles with my dreams of producing and directing movies, which of course didn't happen, my sister is helping my father move. My father was a writer. He was a nonfiction travel writer, right? And so there's this manuscript sitting in the garage, and she asks him about it, and he tells her it's this love story. And love story, Dad? I mean, come on, doesn't compute, right? She reads it, she loves it. She calls me up. She says, Daddy wrote a love story. You got to read it. It's amazing. I'm like, oh, please. She sends it to me. I'm like, whatever. I read it. I could not put it down. I was in tears. So I call my dad and I go, Dad, what are you doing with this? He goes, well, it was a tribute to a friend. It was really, personal. I'm like, can I buy the rights? And I'm like, sure. So I buy the rights, right? I'm 23. And I'm thinking, how nepotistic of me is my dad? So I call a friend of mine. I said, listen, you got to read this because my dad wrote it. I just want to see if it's any good. He's in the middle of producing a movie. And he goes, Henry, I'm in the middle of this movie. Can it wait? I'm like, I got plenty of time. 3 days later, he calls me up and he says, this is amazing. We are meant to do this, right? So here we are. We're now partners 40 some odd years later because he went, into the movie, he got out of the movie business, got into real estate. I went down to do game shows. And, eventually I said, one day we're going to do this. So here we are going back. The book is called The Reincarnation of Marie. It's about a guy who finds his soulmate with one problem. She had died 70 years earlier. He reads a journal. This is based on an actual woman. Her name is Marie Barsh-Kursev. She writes a journal between 14 and 24. She died at 24 of tuberculosis. This is in the late 1800s. She writes a journal. 2 years after her journal, it's published. It becomes a sensational bestseller, international bestseller. And it's because she writes about things that women at the time didn't talk about, sexuality and masturbation and things like, taboo, right? And she writes about, I will find you in time. I will find you, my love. And she's writing to me. He believes he's the one that she is going to find. And then he realizes, I've lost my mind. I've fallen in love with a dead woman. And then he finds her reincarnated. And this is sort of the story. And so the series is called Slippin', which is slipping through time. is about a guy who we see the past lives of the various characters and how they interface with the current lives. And whether it's we're paying back karma for bad shit we did before, or we're getting good karma from good stuff we did, and the characters that sort of play into those lives and help us along the way, which is kind of the idea. And we don't know whether it's reincarnation or it's the quantum, metaverse, or it's just all a figment of our imagination. And I've just slipping in my mind.
I mean, are we even in real world, or is it all a simulation?
That's the point. We don't know. You could be sitting there going, you know what, all of this is a figment of imagination. Nothing exists. Or, yeah, maybe, that person and I had some sort of weird connection in a prior life. I feel something, you know what I mean? So those are the types of things. We don't answer the questions, obviously, but the questions are posed because there's a lot of spooky things going on. And at the end of the day, the book is really passionate. I had the manuscript sitting for decades, and then finally, a couple of years, I literally typed it into a digital format, like on Microsoft Word. And I was in tears again. I mean, it was a really great story. So, I had a producer in LA read it a couple of weeks ago, calls me up and he says, I can't get this off my mind. You never know. The idea is one person wants to make it into a movie, very pure and sort of following the book. And the series is a much deeper dive into who are these people? Who are their friends in the late 1800s? And how do they affect our lives? Or who are we in relationship to them then and now? You know what I mean?
There are things that trip me up whenever spirituality, outer space, or time travel get mentioned. My brain goes like this, and I kind of black out because I'm protecting myself from from having to think about it. They're big thoughts, but I love time travel shows. I love karma shows, like and movies. So I'm excited. Plus, romance novels are the fucking jam right now.
Yeah.
Are they down at, you're in Florida, right?
Yeah. I'm in Florida.
We have an entire bookstore called Trope. Like there's a whole romance bookstore. There's a book bus that travels around Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am, and people out lines out the door to get different types of romance novels. So there's an appetite. We're looking for the Marie journals to be brought
Yeah.
back to life.
And it's funny because in this particular case, he's a young guy, but in this particular case, you sort of look at it and you say, what's funny is, you hear the things about karma and sins of the father and do you meet your soulmate? Well, maybe you do, but do you have to work something out? And does it work in every lifetime? The answer is no. And if you have to work something out, maybe you met them and you screwed it up and then you have another chance in another life. We touch on all of this. There's some things that happen. And when the pieces of the puzzle become clear, you're like, oh my God, you're like mind blown, right? And that's kind of this, okay, so I want to believe, we believe these two are meant to be, but there's something going on. We don't know what happened in the past. And then we find out later and we're like, oh my God, that type of thing. But yeah, romance is a big deal because people feel, I think we're in an epidemic of loneliness, or, I think media and marketing has told us we need to find our forever soulmate. We'll be ever blissfully happy. Yeah, okay, bullshit. Let's be honest. Life doesn't always work that way, but it's nice to believe, right?
If there was an easy button, I feel like the startup life, same thing. You start a business, you think, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to succeed. But yes, nice.
That was easy. It's better than my other button.
You can press it if it says something funny.
Oh, it'll say, wait, what?
2 words, 1 finger.
Do you hear that? 2 words, 1 finger. Then it'll go. All right, I'll leave them alone. They've got a bunch of sayings. I used to play that at the office when somebody came in and, they would say something and I'm like, or, oh yeah, give me an answer. That was easy. Yeah. This
Got
is
it.
the kind of office we had. Okay, never mind.
Culture, company culture, having fun and absolutely grinding. So
Yeah.
the ideas on the internet today of, hey, you're going to start a business, you're going to get 10,000 followers the first week, and here's how. Then you're going to make 1 million your second month, and here's how. Then you're going to be a billionaire and be on jets, and here's how. It's it's driving me insane. That's one of the reasons I started this podcast, is so we could talk to people who actually grew businesses and hear what it's really like. But that it's going to happen now is translating into our personal lives too. Like
Yes.
relationships take time. It's hard. And it's not always going to be like, we're having a great time. They're going to be,
Right.
oh,
I think that especially the younger generation sees this. I want to hack my way through life. I want to buy Bitcoin and be a billionaire or a millionaire, and I want to be able to start my business like Instagram a year from now and sell it for $1 billion. Okay, those are really, really, really rare opportunities, and the reality is far different. If you look at the numbers and you say, okay, 90% of businesses fail, but not me. I'm different. I'm special. I'm like, okay, but what is special about it? I mean, what problem are you solving? And are you patient enough to deal with the ups and downs? Because invariably there will be ups and downs, right? And I think that marketing has sold us an unrealistic bill of goods. You can do it, buy this book and you can be a millionaire. I'm like, okay, it's scary because they're making money off of you and maybe they didn't make it or not. I mean, when I coach small business, I don't even charge because I think I wish I would have known some of those things when I was, dumb and starting. And I don't like people that say, pay me, $250 an hour and I'll teach you. Buy a book. Even somebody said, look, there's this course on AI. I said, go to ChatGPT and type in, give me a 10-week course, give me 2 hours a week to learn, and they will give you ChatGPT will give you the course. It's amazing. That people don't think like that. They want to pay somebody else a couple $100 for an AI course.
I know what I'm doing this afternoon. Getting my hair. We all know, well, you guys weren't here before, but I'm getting my hair done this afternoon. One reason for the hat. But I'm also going to be taking an AI course on my telephone from ChatGPT. So thank you, Henry.
You can ask it. You can say, listen, ChatGPT, I'm new to AI. I would like to learn the basics. Give me a 10-week course and give me this much study time and this much. So you can set the parameters and it will do it for you and tell you what to do. And then you check in with it every week.
Like I just need, again, attention spans. I need 30-minute classes, but
There you go.
consistent. That's how I learn. Consistent so I don't lose it. Like
Yeah.
languages. I
Yeah.
would have to do it every day, practice every day. Well, I've had fun. How about you?
Always.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what the new hairdo looks like.
It's going to be like this, but clean. And you won't see as many grays. I blonded when I started going gray because it's easier to cover.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So what's next for the reincarnation of Marie and this
So the reincarnation of Marie is, a year ago I published it. It's on Amazon. It's doing pretty well.
you got two
Um,
awards already.
it's gotten a couple of awards. I'm trying to get on some lists. That's the problem. So how do I get more promotion? Get on a list. How do I get on a list? Get promotion. I'm like, hello, the circle of idiots. But the reality is, books don't make a lot of money unless you're really big name authors. My goal was really to have something published to then the goal really is the series. So now that we have that out there, we're actually creating teasers from the new Google VO3 ADI text to video to promote what it could look like. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to use AI, but at least it's a hack to get people interested to see it because they might get a treatment and they go, go through my agent or, have the, so this might be a little bit different. So we'll see. We'll try it.
That's brilliant. That's like when you're looking at a home remodel and you see it flat. Ugh, okay. But then when you see the 3D rendering, I want that fucking marble. I
Yeah.
need backsplash.
Exactly. And
Eh,
it gives you those ideas. And it says, okay, so as opposed to, reading, but first of all, you're not going to read it because you're lazy. But here's a minute and a half video. What do you think? Wow, I get it. Oh yeah. Love that transcends time. Oh, is love more powerful than time? Oh my God, reincarnation. Yeah, I want to know more. All I want is I want to know more. Tell me more. Show me more. Right?
you're selling, this is what we do. I like to teach my salespeople. You're selling the sizzle. You're not selling the steak. Same with marketing. Don't give them the whole, you're just get them in. It's the
So,
fajita walking by. What is
yeah.
that? I want more. Why is it so loud?
Yeah. I like fajita. I like steak. Bring it on.
Bring it on. Well, I'm super excited. I'm going to have to go get my copy of it now. I've got some gals in the neighborhood who are going to Trope. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. Maybe we'll leave some on their doorstep. so those girlies can get into it, and boys and men, because the main character is a man. And yeah,
And
keep our
by the
eyes.
way, if there are people that are lazy like me and they don't like reading, but they will listen to a book, there is an audio book of The Reincarnation of Marie. And the reason I say that is because the publisher said, yeah, we can do an audiobook. I'm like, great. Do I need to find a voiceover talent? And they said, well, why don't you do it? You've got a nice voice. And I'm thinking, what? Okay, but I don't want to be sitting in a studio for days. And yeah, so now the voice is me. There's some music transitions with Chopin's piano, and that was done by my nephew. So my father wrote it, I did the voice, and my nephew, his grandson, did the music transitions.
Family affair.
There you go.
Fabulous.
Bring it on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
I want you to read it and get back to me and tell me what you think.
I'm going to. And then in the comments, we're going to have some feet pics, and we're going to have people comment yes if you've made it this far, because we're giving you prizes for your attention span. And then also, when you read the book, leave your comments below, or leave it on Amazon so other people can get your feedback there.
Love it. Thanks, Chelsea.